So good morning Year 7. I thought today I would try and show you a little bit of how to do the collage part, the next stage. So as I said, and I think I've sent out, you need some different sort of papers, bits and pieces. I've got some newspaper, some magazines. I've managed to find some maps, and also this is an old road atlas that I'm going to take a page out of. So you can gather some different things. You might want to group them into sort of colour families. So here I've got some different greens papers, but I've also ripped this out of a magazine because I thought where the colours went nicely with the colours that I've chosen, and also that I could perhaps take some nice areas out of here. So a lot of the techniques that we're going to use on this are similar to the techniques that we used when we did the insects. So you will begin to sort of understand that. Now, I've worked from the resources that I had, so I was able to print it out. Hopefully you might be able to. If not, you can work off the screen, or you could find another image, or you could work off the drawing that you did last week. So what I'm initially going to do is obviously to trace off a basic shape. I'm just going to have to move the camera so you can sort of see a bit better. So hopefully you can see that I'm using tracing paper because I've got it available. You may or may not have tracing paper available. Another good thing to use, as I think I explained when we did the bunting, was that you can use baking parchment paper, you know, where you would line the tin. That works really well, and that's what I used to do when I was your age. You could also use, sometimes the paper that goes through your printers at home is quite thin. If you hold it up to a window, you can see through. So hopefully you've got an image of the bird that you want to work from. Now, I've also shown you the artist Charlie Harper, and you know that Charlie Harper's work is quite graphic and he simplifies the shapes. And you know that sometimes when we did the insects, we did something similar there. I've also posted up for you in the assignment that attaches to this, which I'll post in a bit, some other resources where you can see some other artists that have done some more sort of graphic collage work with birds. So what I've done first is I have gone to trace over the bird. So I've simplified it slightly. Hopefully you can see that. It's not easy. So hopefully you can see. Let me turn this around. So hopefully you can see that I have sort of traced over the bird. If I take the bird image away and reveal it, you can see that I have simplified the shape, but it's still quite complex. So I then decided that I would take that down a step further, and I simplified it even more. So I then took that to that. So if I flick that back, you can probably see, hopefully you can, that it's a little bit simpler. I then took it a step further, and I took it, I can move that out of the way, to that. So it becomes really quite a simple shape to start off with. Now, in the same way that we worked before, we're going to have a base. So I picked some of these papers to start me off for this bird. These are lucky because they've got two sides to them. And I have placed carefully on there my tracing. I've used a little bit of tape, but you could use a bulldog clip to hold it in place. If you've got any of those, paper clips, I'm sure you must have some paper clips at home. You can usually find something that will hold it in place whilst you then trace through your bird drawing. So you would trace through it. Once you've done that, you then get the image on the paper. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let me just tip that up a bit better. So it hasn't got some. So you've got the image on the paper. Then you can start to cut it out. And again, we've done cutting before, and you know I'm quite fussy about cutting because it should be good and it should be quality. So I'll just remind you, for those of you that have forgotten. So you want to be doing longer marks cuts rather than short ones. As you know, my technique is often that I move the paper more than I might move the scissors. So the paper is sometimes moving more. Sometimes there's a bit of both, but particularly if I get to an area where I might want it to be curved or coming up to the end of his, I've done the pied wagtail, coming up to the end of his tail. I'm calling him a him, but it could be a she. Can you see then how I've turned the paper more than I have my wrist? I can then readjust my hand and start to cut. I'm not going to spend all the time, but you can begin to see. So I did cut this one earlier. So sorry, it's the same colour as my jumper, which doesn't help. So you can begin to see the basic shape. So that's the first, excuse my voice is going, that's the first stage that I want you to start with this morning, is to get your papers, do you remember when we did the insects, we picked out a few colours and combinations that we liked. So you want to gather those together and have those there. And that's how you will start off. So I want you to start off with your basic bird shape. You might notice that my bird hasn't got any legs, but don't worry about that because we'll come back to that later, a bit like when we did some of the insects. This bird that we're going to do is going to be completely flat, so it's going to be a flat collage, unlike the insects which had certain three-dimensional qualities. This one's going to be flat. And we potentially will put on some marks using some other tools and other materials as well. Okay, so if you get to that stage, I will post up another video shortly which takes you through to the next stage. Good luck. Look at all the resources that I've put online so you can get some idea of how you want your bird to be. Ideally, you're wanting your bird to have a little bit of sass, perhaps a little bit of personality. Some of the drawings that you did, I think when I gave feedback, some of them, the birds looked as though they had a bit of personality to them. So that's what we're aiming for. Something that's a bit of fun, using a bit of colour and pattern and mixing things together. Okay, good luck.